Saving the world is nice, but you still gotta eat. Who has time to worry about the future of the planet when you're worried about this week's paycheck? Climate change is often perceived as an issue only for people privileged enough to worry about it. Our next guest, Kristy Drutman, is working on this problem. Instead of being afraid of the jobs we're losing, we should be focused on the jobs we're creating. And her work reminds us that what can really unify us is opportunity. She built a jobs board that's also a springboard for a lot more than a 9-to-5.
We can't get people to wake up and take action if we're not going to address their basic needs, like how they're going to put food on the table, how they're going to take care of their families. Every job can become a green job through transferable skill sets. Building and creating jobs for that is one of the biggest potential opportunities for a bipartisan win.
But first, hi, I'm Charles Loy. My friends and I made an Emmy-winning series on PBS called Climate California. What we found gave me hope. It's not too late. Climate change is solvable, whether it's by limiting warming or adapting to it. I talked to some of the visionaries who are leading the way, and they just might change how you see your role in this fight. So subscribe or follow. From NorCal Public Media, this is A Fighting Chance. A Fighting Chance is a presentation of the Center for Environmental Reporting with financial support from the estate of Claire Etienne. Eco-influencer Kristy Drutman started out posting as Brown Girl Green on Instagram. Hot takes, fun sketches, edutainment.
Well, we're so honored to have you here on Love and Climate in Times Square this afternoon.
What's up, everybody? I'm Hela the Earth, your favorite planet, sexiest planet, and I'm looking for a mankind to treat me right.
I love that. I love that.
The Instagram page evolved into the platform Green Jobs Board. It's helped hundreds of thousands of people find work in environmentalism, especially people who may not have ever seen themselves in these roles. It doesn't just help them find jobs, it helps train and mentor them. I met up with Kristy during LA Climate Week, where she was hosting a job fair. Kristy's building out the human infrastructure of the climate movement, one that's more inclusive and broader based. More minorities, more working class people. I wanted to know what drives her.
I grew up, born and raised in Southern California near the 91 freeway as a kid. So, growing up, I remember my dad saying that the freeway would sound like the ocean.
Yeah.
Because it was a sea of cars. And I remember just having that so vivid in my mind because I would go to sleep and I would hear the freeway humming in the background. And I remember in middle school, I participated in a science fair project that my classmate was hosting to test the lung capacity of kids who lived in smoking or non-smoking households. And I clearly grew up in a non-smoking household, but my classmate was like, hey, breathe into this balloon and we're going to test your lung capacity. So I breathed into it as hard as I possibly could. And she was like, do your parents smoke? And I was like, absolutely not. They don't. And she was like, you actually have a lower lung capacity than some of the people that actually live in smoking households. And that really started making me think, like, am I breathing bad air? Like, I never even put two and two together. And that was in, middle school. So going into high school, I started to explore and wonder, what other aspects are there around protecting the environment? Because I didn't grow up really thinking of myself as an environmentalist. That wasn't something, used in my household. But inherently, I was being impacted by these issues. So I started exploring that more into high school and realized that environmental issues were directly connected to human rights issues, was getting really deeply involved in understanding the connections between actually human trafficking and what happens during natural disasters. My family is from the Philippines, and, typhoons hit there all the time. And Typhoon Yolanda hit the Philippines when I was in college at UC Berkeley, right when I started university. And during that time, I was also understanding that it wasn't just about the disaster that was devastating. It was about the after impacts. And some of those after impacts include an increase of violence against women and children when it comes to human trafficking. And so for me, I was starting to connect the dots where I was like, climate change and environmental issues are not just about protecting the environment or protecting species. It's about literally the survival of humankind. And it's also about the protection of the rights and well-being of humankind.
I wanted to connect your personal story to the work that you're doing now. Do you mind talking a little bit about how Green Jobs connects to what you just talked about when it comes to human rights and environmental justice?
I went to UC Berkeley for undergrad, had access to professors who were the top in their field talking about climate issues. And I thought it was great. I was like graduating with top honors. Meanwhile, I'm seeing communities on the ground literally fighting, protesting for their rights to clean air, clean water, and healthy soil. And I was just feeling like there was such a disconnect between the education I was getting access to and the work that was actually happening on the ground. It felt so much theory and not a lot of practice. And that bothered me because I was like, still seeing that the people in positions of power and leadership and funding did not look like the communities being the most impacted by these issues. So I saw not just, disproportionate separation in like resources, but it was also in storytelling and how funding was getting distributed. And all of those things were connected to where I was realizing like scientists are saying we want to get the general public to care, but yet we're not seeing the stories and the solutions and the connections being uplifted for people of the global majority, which are people who come from marginalized communities. And so I just felt like all these disconnects were happening, and that there was just such passionate scientists and people in the world wanting folks to wake up and take action. But I was like, we can't get people to wake up and take action if we're not going to address their basic needs, like how they're going to put food on the table, how they're going to take care of their families, giving them stories and evidence-based hope that makes them feel like, oh, wow, I see people in my community doing this. I'm going to try to do my part to kind of be one piece of that infrastructure. And that started with my storytelling journey with Brown Girl Green, my media platform. So I started building digital scaffolding with putting my voice online, putting my face out there. And, it started as a podcast and it emerged and evolved into videos and blogs. And it resonated with people. People were telling me that I was like definitely the first Jewish Filipina American they had ever seen on screen talking about environmental issues in this way. And for me, it felt like taking the lessons of seeing the climate impacts happening to my family in the Philippines and so many communities worldwide, and being able to channel that into an outlet where I could express my frustration, my anger, my curiosities, my hopes. Like it was a space that I felt safe in to express that because I felt like institutions weren't necessarily passing me the mic. I felt like they were still reaching audiences that maybe had access to the education and resources to take action.
Yep.
And I wanted to reach people who grew up in Corona.
Yeah.
I would go to my career counselors and I would tell them, hey, I want to become a science communicator. I want to talk about climate change online. And they looked at me like I had three heads and they were like, there are no jobs for that. Sorry, you're going to have to figure it out. And I just didn't want to take that as an answer. And basically that was during the time I started Brown Girl Green. I was like, I'm not going to wait around for some organization to give me this opportunity. I'm just going to figure it out and we'll see where it goes. And now I'm here sitting with you today. So I guess it's going kind of good.
It's going great. I was where you were a few years ago as well. I was like, oh, I want to tell stories about climate change.
Right.
So how do you prove yourself that you can do this in a way that is both engaging for people
Right.
and not divisive? How do you find that balance?
I was curating resources, fellowships, internships, and helping people connect the dots on organizations they could apply to. I realized that green jobs and workforce development was a perfect opportunity to think about a win that applies to everyone. I don't care what your political affiliation is, what your background is. This is the land we live on. This is the water we drink. This is the air we breathe. I think building and creating jobs for that and encouraging people to enter those pathways and training them and getting them into those opportunities is one of the biggest potential opportunities for a bipartisan win I think we have on the table right now when it comes to climate. And for me, starting it as a weekly series, it went viral. Thousands and thousands of people were sharing my resource. And then organizations and companies were like, hey, can we actually legitimately recruit through this series you're starting? And I remember 3 or 4 months into it, an organization was like, hey, we got our first successful placement through your Instagram.
That's awesome.
Someone else who was, a young Filipino woman was like, I got my first internship through your job board. And I was like, and I saw myself flashback 4 or 5 years previous. And I was like, whoa, I wish I had something like this when I was that age. And I'm actually creating real life opportunities for people that hadn't existed before. And basically, flash forward 3 years later, what started as an Instagram page has now evolved into over 200,000 green job seekers around the world, primarily in the US, but around the world, utilizing our resource. We have over 1,000 employers that post jobs with us and have had a lot of success getting placements. And we've hosted summits for the past 3 years. We hosted our first summit the first year we were a company, which is the Green Jobs Pavilion. And for me, again, I was just someone who has the attitude like, I'm not going to wait 5 years till I get a PhD, a master's, till someone gives me the certificate of approval to say, build this thing. We're trying to make it as accessible as possible so people, down the street in communities who maybe couldn't see themselves in these roles can finally find those opportunities, learn about people doing this work. It feels like the future. It feels like it's not rooted in the doom scrolling of it all. It feels like, actually, I'm going to get off the internet, talk to people doing great work, and use the internet as a tool to get us one step closer to moving the needle.
Can you kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it a little bit?
We never had access to building a tech platform to actually track every single placement. A lot of it over time has been anecdotal, and we became a company out of a viral moment. We are in the process of building a platform where we will be able to track all of those job placements.
You've become a tech entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what makes us different, I would say, is the community, the curated aspect. We're not just listing jobs. Obviously, we're called Green Jobs Board, but we want to be so much more than that. We want to build a career ecosystem.
Economists would call the Green Jobs Board a labor market intermediary, but I prefer an ecological metaphor. Kristy's network connects people to opportunities the way that fungi connects trees to nutrients through a mycelial network. But mycelium only works if the forest above it is healthy. And right now, that metaphorical forest, that collection of people and policies and resources that are protecting the environment, is under attack, especially with the rollback of green investment in recent years. So what I think is great about Kristy's work is that she's helping expand the climate movement beyond the ghetto of people who care to the entire society. You don't have to be a climate activist or even a liberal, but if your brother builds parts for solar panels, or if your spouse does the books at a clean energy firm, or if your cousin maintains wind turbines, you will care about the green energy economy. The more people who see themselves or their communities as part of the green economy, the more people who will have a stake in it. And that makes for a harder movement to destroy. That makes for a stronger environmental movement. When we come back, Kristy talks about how every job can be a green job, maybe even yours. If you're listening to this podcast, we do have a lovely video version. You can watch it or listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. I hope you do become a member of NorCal Public Media. For as little as the cost of 2 lattes, you can sustain public media and give us a fighting chance at season 2. Go to norcalpublicmedia.org/donate. Thanks.
I've been hearing for decades that the markets can solve climate change. Today, we have more incentives for market solutions than ever, and emissions are rising. On this season of Drilled, Carbon Cowboys, the story of 3 market solutions colliding in one multinational boondoggle.
You gotta give Bruce and the guys credit. They're Republicans. They don't give a shit about any of this stuff.
Listen anywhere you get podcasts.
And now back to Kristy.
I don't meet many Asian American storytellers in the climate space. I think it's really incredible that you've started this show. I was just curious, why, how have you within the Asian American diaspora felt like it was important for you as a host to make your voice seen?
That's a really good question. So on our show, Climate California, the PBS series that we just did, we have 3 Asian Americans, myself, Hannah Lee, and Jeremy Ju. They're also co-directors. It just kind of happened that way. We just happened to be Asian American, which is kind of how I preferred. Yeah. I lived in China for about 10 years, Hong Kong and Beijing. So that culture, that country is really a big part of who I am. I also went to Vietnam where my family lived for a generation. I didn't really grow up with a lot of Asian American heroes on TV, except for Bruce Lee and Martin Yan. And I went to China and I realized this is just a default. Everyone is Asian. One of my friends, Mike Tai, said in Vietnam, you can be anybody. You can be a hero, a villain. You can be a CEO. You can be a worker. And you don't have this ceiling that is hidden and kind of part of your life. And so when I came back to the US after living in China, I kind of had a different attitude. I really wanted to do something meaningful with the skills I had.
I love that. I mean, I think it's just so important that we have more Asian American voices, because I think in the climate space, like, our diasporas are so deeply connected to climate issues. But I think our communities don't always talk about it besides in the context of natural disasters. And I think it's very cool that you've created a forum to bring on diverse voices, including specifically Asian American voices, to start showing that representation. Like, you are the one creating the heroes on screen.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah.
But part of what I like to do is also be as inclusive as possible, because I have all these different identities, right? I'm a filmmaker, I'm American, I'm Chinese. My family was in Vietnam. And I don't know, I just love this idea that we can have diversity
Yes.
while making everyone feel like it's something beautiful that they want to share it, right? Whether you're white or brown or black or rich or poor, anything.
100%. As someone who is like mixed race, I don't view like my identity as a weakness. I actually view it as a strength. I think there's an opportunity where I come from a lineage of ancestors that have led me to this moment to be this voice for my generation. Sometimes I wonder like why I'm on this path, but I lean into it. I know that I'm meant to be here for a reason, and I stop questioning myself so much. I think it's common as an entrepreneur, especially as a woman of color, to experience imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
But I've learned like imposter syndrome doesn't exist in a space where you're building systems of support, where you're able to really understand and navigate the strengths of different people and pulling out the best in them.
I think what you're doing is really beautiful.
Thank you. I think if we're going to be real about how do we get more people into these rooms, we have to be real about the opportunities to pay people a living wage. We have to talk about what are those pathways to actually guide and create mentorship. How are we finding that balance of making sure that everyone's experience is worth their time, worth their money, and is actually going to get them to where they need to be?
Talk to me a bit about people who have jobs that are not necessarily green, but that can also get a green job.
Yeah, I mean, I truly believe every job can become a green job through transferable skill sets. You know, the climate movement, we need people who are accountants, who know how to balance the books. We need people who know how to install like an HVAC system. I definitely don't know how to do that. So we definitely need people who do that. We need marketers, people who know how to sell good principles in the world, sell, you know, a lifestyle that is, you know, more slow living, in tune with the earth. We need builders, we need dreamers. Even if you're in a job right now that you don't view as like climate friendly, like if you're someone who knows how to organize information, do research, you know how to count numbers and arrange information, then you can find a green job. At the end of the day, we are in a time of climate crisis where every sector needs to act. It cannot be just the environmentalists. And so I think we're at a point of reckoning in our humanity. Organizations who maybe are really doing that incredible work, both for-profit to nonprofit to foundations, need to really ask themselves, who am I letting in and who am I leaving out? And really asking themselves, how are they creating those pathways and how are they also creating barriers? And I think until we ask ourselves those real questions, I don't know how we are going to get more people mobilized to take action on the environment if they don't see, you know, the benefit to themselves and their communities. I hear all the time, like, how can I possibly think about the environment and, you know, solar panels and all these things when, like, I'm, again, just trying, like, making below minimum wage or minimum wage, and I don't even see, you know, what that opportunity is, or like, should I go back to school? Do you even need to go to school? Some of these green jobs, you don't even need to like pursue, you know, secondary education for. And I think that's why it's also so exciting. Like, tuition rates are so high. But, you know, apprenticeship programs, you have the opportunity to like triple, quadruple, please fact check me on that, you know, your income. Over time, there's huge leadership opportunities that don't require a college degree. So like, not trying to like totally market for the trades, But like, this is a huge opportunity for people to get into the trades. Even if you are college educated, there's job security, there's union support, and there's long-term growth. And if we're going to try to build the green infrastructure of the future, there is a lot of more economic security in that than people might even realize.
I like what you said because you are shifting the conversation. Essentially, every job should be a green job.
I think every job should be a green job, but not every career pathway currently can be unless we actually build the tools and the infrastructure to get people there.
With the current administration doing what they did to the IRA, we lost a lot of green jobs that could have been here. I saw some figure, it was like 150,000 jobs that were lost because of cuts in funding. How is the wider macro picture affecting your work over the next few years?
I cannot lie to you, it's been quite challenging, to say the least. We've seen organizations and companies we worked with for years before all of this happened now suddenly not able to hire anymore. But we've also seen organizations who are stepping up to the plate and are like, actually, we're going to double down and actually like increase roles, which honestly, I didn't fully expect. But it's happening. Like, there is still organizations and companies actively hiring in this space. And the rest of the world is continuing to grow these industries.
Yep.
Like, the world is not slowing down when it comes to the climate fight. There is so many folks that are pushing for clean energy worldwide. So many folks that are pushing for protection of biodiversity because people know biodiversity loss is here. And even a push for agriculture that is in harmony with the earth. People are understanding from both an economic and an environmental standpoint that like that is potentially a bipartisan issue.
Mm-hmm.
The losses have been devastating, and I don't want to underscore that. But at the same time, I think we're in, again, a reckoning moment where there's opportunities for innovation, reframes, thinking about where have we not been tapping into talent, where are those pathways that are existing that we haven't discussed before. And yeah, and I want to be at the forefront of those conversations.
One of our guests, Chelsea Byers, who is a council member from West Hollywood, she talks a bit about the difference between resistance and resilience. So resistance is saying no. Resilience is about just saying, I'm standing here and I'm still going to be here no matter what.
Yeah.
What you guys are doing is creating an infrastructure that stands now, but could also grow when there's more opportunity.
Yes, I truly believe that. I think we're in it for the long haul. At the end of the day, like, I guess I'm built a little different because, it's tough out here. I'm not going to lie to you. And people are like, how are you still going? And it's like, because I'm not doing this for, I guess, superficial reasons. I'm doing this for the macro. I'm doing this for the future, for what I really believe in. And I know people may not understand what that feels like, but I hope other people can find that spark in them to understand each of us has that fire within us. And I think truly the work I do today has lit that in me. What started off as an online community with Green Jobs Board turned into, real life movement. And yeah, the numbers speak for themselves. When we were doing New York, this last third year of hosting it in New York City, we had over 1,000 registrants. We had 90 speakers and 27 sessions over 3 days. And that was all produced with 3 people. We did all of that as a labor of love, and I can't wait to bring this to other cities across the U.S.
How does your work on Green Jobs Board compare to your work with the Biden administration with the EPA?
I view it all connected. I view content creation and storytelling as a vehicle for young people to make their voices heard and to actually influence policy rooms. I started my content creation journey very grassroots, self-produced entrepreneur. And, a year or 2 later, I found myself at the White House under the Biden administration, filming content and getting to interview, top leaders of the state. And then later on, getting nominated to become one of 16 members of the U.S. EPA's National Environmental Youth Advisory Council, actually advising on what the future of the country was going to do about environmental issues. And I think it was an incredible experience for me to see the power not only in my own voice, but to show people like, actually, these tools are so powerful. And I think if we are going to continue to build collective power, we have so much information and tools at our disposal to connect people together faster than we ever have before.
One of our interns, I want to kind of embarrass her if she sees this, Her name's Britney, and she just graduated with a master's, has no video experience, but through working with us, like she's able to kind of learn a bit more about storytelling, and she's got stories to tell, right?
So cool.
So I guess I'm kind of wondering, do you have like an individual whose life was sort of adjusted or changed?
I had a friend, she was a follower of mine on social media. She had no business in like the climate space, but she was following me because of my fashion content, because I do susty fits or sustainable fashion. So I show like thrifted fits. So she was following me because of that. And she told me that she had no interest in getting into climate or environment, but she kept seeing my journey. And then eventually like actually applied her skills as like a marketer, um, and decided to go back to grad school, study environmental policy, took her marketing, took her environmental policy degree, and then applied for a job on Green Jobs Board and now works at that organization.
Yeah, you're actually influencing.
I'm actually influencing, yeah. And then, you know, I met someone who told me, and I was meeting with them. They work pretty high up at Patagonia, and they told me that they got their first job through Green Jobs Board that led them to then now senior executive, whatever they are at Patagonia. And I was like, well, you know, I don't know where the path is going to lead, but we're definitely placing the stepping stones for people.
I wanted to couch this conversation in like the wider historical perspective of capitalism,
Yeah.
exploitation.
Yeah. There needs to be a change on how people even view the concept of a job and how people are even approaching their concept of how they're relating to their workplace and their lives and the day-to-day of what they're putting in and what they're getting out and how they're giving back.
Yeah.
Much bigger questions to be asked, but I think we have to talk about worker protections. We have to talk about how people are getting to organize and commit to their communities. How are people able to form things like cooperatives, unions, things that give workers protections long term? And to rethink about, you know, what is this top-down approach? Are we just going to depend on billionaire philanthropy to get us out of this mess? I don't think so. I think it's going to take all of us. It's going to take people that are very passionate to build it themselves. And so as much as, you know, we want to provide a platform and a resource, I think we're just one drop in the bucket of a much bigger conversation that we want to provide those resources to also connect people to movements that are even rethinking the future of work also.
What you said makes me remember that sometimes a job is just a job.
Yes.
And sometimes a job is something bigger. It's dignity, it's livelihood, it's your connection to the community, it's what gives you meaning, what gets you up in the morning. Maybe what you're doing seems to be something that helps people move to that second part. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on A Fighting Chance. For more, check out our TV series, Climate California. In the meantime, catch up on the episodes you may have missed. Share it with a friend, follow, and connect with us on social media. Until next time, whatever your actual job is, you're doing a great job being awesome. A Fighting Chance is a production of NorCal Public Media's Center for Environmental Reporting. This episode is produced by senior producer and editor Taylor Kaufman, executive producers Darren Michelle and Nathan Toby, and me, Charles Loy. It's edited by Jennifer D. Filippo and myself, and filmed by Kiana Mishan, Michael Field, Hannah Lee, Jeremy Ju, Anna Loy, and Brittany Hernandez. Original music by Miguel Briery. Talent booking and marketing support by Jessica Pilot, Kristen Hayford, and Shemay Saunders. Artwork by Ashley Wittenborn with photography by Michael Field. Our digital content manager is Kelly Olson. Our head of TV is Paul Swenson. For full list of credits, go to afightingchancepod.org.